Hey everybody, welcome back to the Danger Planet. Today it's me and Doug talking about the This Party's Over squad pack from Star Wars Shatterpoint. Doug, make a
This
human noise.
party's over.
Oh my gosh. All right, everybody. Uh, Mace Windu is here and he's got a lot to say for Star Wars Shatterpoint. OMG. What do you think?
He's the man.
Yeah.
I have a lot of thoughts on this guy, but I'll let you get through your
Yeah, let's
as is traditional run through. But I got some feelings on this one.
Well, Mace Windu's got some stuff. He's making waves like he always does. First it was purple lightsabers. Now he's the first 6 squad point character in the game. So he's 6 squad points, 4 force points, and he's got a plethora of abilities. He has a tactic at the start of activation called Rush to Action. You choose another allied Galactic Republic, and every character in this unit, which is the same Mace Windu, and every character in the allied Galactic Republic unit all get 2 dash, which is a lot of dashing and a lot of movement. It's really good. So he's got a reactive ability called Tempered Aggression. Whenever a character in this unit makes an attack, after all the dice and defense dice have been rolled, he can spend any number of force to reroll a miss in his attack for each force spent, which is like probably a good way to hemorrhage a bunch of force, but it's also, sometimes you just got to punch things into the ground. He has the titular ability for the game, which is an innate ability called Shatterpoint. When this unit is chosen to activate with the Shatterpoint card, if its active stance is Form 7 Vapad, which is more offensive stance, he immediately gets to focus, and then he has Impact 2 until the end of the turn, which means he gets 3 extra dice on any attacks he does, melee attacks he does. And if his stance is Jedi Master, which is more defensive form, he refreshes 2 force, and 1 character in this unit can heal 3, which is also nuts. And then lastly, we got his innate ability. While this party's over, while a character in this unit is engaged, all Galactic Republic characters within range 5 have Steadfast and Protection.
He's so ridiculous.
Yeah, and he's a Force user, Galactic Republic and Jedi, and he's got 11 stamina, 3 durability. So like, oh my god.
Yeah, this guy kicks ass. So I really thought he was super underwhelming until I actually ran him in a game. So I've had 2 games under my belt now with Windu, and before I played him, my thought process on him was like, oh my god, he's so expensive. Like, he's not even that good for how expensive he is. I wonder if this guy will ever be like playable. And then I played him, and I was like, wow, this guy's like actually pretty good.
Yeah, dude.
I used him a lot. So one of the most important things that I think that I'll do a couple call outs were like learning points for me when I was piloting him. One of them is you really want to be using triggers on supporting characters like pawns or anything that gives him free push movement, so that when he does activate, immediately when he activates, he's relevant. Like when you have a character that's this expensive and this powerful, it forces you into what some people would refer to back in the day as hero hammer, right? He's just like a central piece of your strategy because he has to be, because he's so expensive. So I used pawns and I used Rex to like make sure that he had enough movement to basically be wherever he wanted to be for the activation. And then another thing that I found was really, really important with him was positioning him so that the ARF Troopers, or the ARF Troopers, would get their exposure trigger for when he's hitting someone. Because if he can hit someone and force through either his full track or his secondary full track, he can apply every condition in the game to them. And if you can wound a model and apply every condition in the game to it, it like really hampers. Ideally, you're using him to kill a primary, right? It really hampers that primary's activation. So I played Ian with a Grievous Count Dooku list, and he went into Count Dooku, wounded him, applied every condition in the game on him with help from an exposure from an ARF Trooper. So the ARF Trooper triggers, exposes Dooku, who normally has insane defensive stats, and then he just punches through all of Dooku's stats using his rerolls to fish for whatever he needs. And then if you can get to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 progressions, that's the bounce progression. And you don't even really need 6. You need 2, 3, 4. You need 5 progressions to put every status in the game on a model. And those 5 progressions will get you 4, 5, 6, 7 damage. So you can get to 7 damage. So if you've done any type of chip damage, and then his last track is 8 with another move, if you can, you know, 5 or 6 track somebody who's been exposed, which is not that crazy considering this guy's specialty tracks, you just nuke that primary for that activation. And then the other thing that I've done once I get him into engagement is I bounce him around using things like his last trigger on his Form 7 Vapad, or things like free movement tricks, to try to always keep him engaged. I found that he was easily the most powerful when he was in the center of the board and he was engaged, so that he could pulse out "this party's over." It made everything Ian was doing much harder for him. And with the exposed fire, he has enough gas to just nuke a primary if you can expose them.
Yeah. Exposed is such a ridiculous condition, and I think that it speaks volumes in this game in particular. Where like, yeah, you might have an answer to like a bunch of conditions where you have like Mace Windu can do it, right? He can heal 3, so if you're near him, but because the random order of unit activations doesn't come up necessarily in the order that you want it, unless you already had like a healer on reserve, like there's a chance that you just might not be able to do anything, and then you have to go with your primary that is just completely crippled and can't do anything at all. But like, you know, I think the call out points for sure, definitely you want to combo him with exposed. That's super good. You want to park him in the middle of the board and make sure he stays engaged. That's super important. And you have so many things in the Galactic Republic side that let you move him at the start of other things activations or during other things activations. To like, if they spend an activation to get him unengaged, you just fix it immediately, right?
Yep.
And then, like, you know, you really got to think about, like, if you're playing with Mace Windu, barring significant and exigent circumstances, every time your Shatterpoint card comes up, you want to be using it on him, right? And then, like, you know, deciding, you know, really taking into account when you flip his stance card, which we'll talk about in a second, is super clutch, because you know, if you start in Form 7 Vapad, which is his offensive one, right at the end of his ability, if you need the force back after you go all in on somebody, you can just flip it at the end. Then he's in more defensive while he's just sitting in the middle of the board, and then as soon as you Shatterpoint him, he gets to refresh 2 force, which is wild. Or if you really need to kill somebody, you know, put him in defensive mode for whatever, flip him at the end and do that the opposite way, right?
Yeah.
I think that he's an incredibly versatile guy. Well, I mean, yeah, let's just talk about his damage track, since we already have, right?
Yeah.
So Form 7 Vapad is nuts. There's 1 million damage on this card, which is like good, I guess. But like, you'll also notice, like Doug was saying, that he has literally every condition possible, followed by a reposition. So if you get a full 6 track, you do 8 damage, and every 8 damage, every condition in the game, and a full advanced reposition.
Or you can just straight up. He also has 2 track 5 damage, which is really good, and he has 3 track 7 damage, which is really good. So if you just like really kind of like not full tracking people, his damage is super front loaded, which is incredibly nice.
And he has what we always love to see, which is a single expertise gives a crit, which is nice. 3 expertise gives 2 crit, and somehow if you get a weird roll and just roll 5 or more expertise, you get 3 crits, which is just insane. And if you're exposing people, there's nothing they can do about that. Which is just like, there's no world that you're not going to track people, especially if you Shatterpointed them in this form, because he'll have 3 extra dice, so we'll be rolling 10 dice.
It's not even hard to put the exposure condition onto people with the ARF Troopers and a Galactic Republic keyword list. Like,
yeah,
at least in the early phases of the game, before the ARF Troopers are wounded and they don't need to be spending force to do it, all you have to do is have them within 5.
There's a dozen options too now. It's not just the ARF Troopers. Like, there's like 4 units that do this now.
Yeah, but the one in the Mace Windu package,
the one in the box that we'll talk about in a minute. Yeah.
It's probably one of the best models in the game right now, honestly.
Yeah. And like, even looking at his defensive track on his offensive thing, he's got 5 dice, which isn't great, but like, a single expertise is a hit, and a crit becomes a block, and a crit becomes a normal hit, which means you block a crit, right? Which is nuts.
His specialty defense track is really good.
Yeah, like, you know, two blocks and a crit becomes a normal hit, and then 4 up, he has 2 blocks, a crit becomes a normal hit, and he gets to reposition if you roll 4 of your 5 dice as this thing. Which is probably unlikely, but you know, it's still worth noting. And you know, he could have hunger tokens. He might be getting cover from this. Who can say?
Yeah, he's got
Um,
really solid defensive specialties.
And then
Big
like his defensive track's fine. Like it's not the worst. It's got 2 shoves. It's got a shove on the first damage with a single expertise for crit, right? So if you roll a single expertise, you're getting a shove out of somebody in almost all cases. But it's 2 shoves right away. You can still put expose. You get some jumps. You can still do a buttload of damage. Like if you 5-track somebody, even in his defensive form, you're doing 8 damage, which is nothing to right home, nothing to be sad about. And 3 shoves, right? Yeah. So like. I think more so than any other character, I'm probably more likely to follow up with those shoves with Mace Windu, which is a thing that normally I'm just shoving people and yeeting them off objectives. But you get movement out of shoves too, right?
I think that call that you made is very significant. Is when you got to put conditions or kill something, Vapad, and if you want to move someone off a point, Jedi Master.
Yeah, Jedi Master moves people for days. It's got literally the same expertise track on attack as his offensive form, but his defensive form is even crazier because at a single expertise with 6 dice, he gets a block and a hit just straight up misses. And then we have crit misses and hit misses on 2 with a block, which is like what do you do? 11 health? You're not going to kill this guy if he's not exposed and is able to roll like 2 or 3. Let alone 4. It's nuts. He's impossible to take down with aggressive defense unless you expose him. Which hopefully they don't get a chance to.
Commander Pawns.
All right. So this lad is probably my favorite model in all of Star Wars Shatterpoint for a reason we'll talk about in a minute. But first, he has an innate ability called Charge at the start of this unit's activation. Choose another Allied Galactic Republic character. That character can dash. It's a great Allied Galactic Republic character there. It's Mace Windu.
Yeah, probably Mace Windu.
Wild. And then we have 2 innate abilities on Commander Pawns. Firstly is incoming, so Allied Clone Trooper units within range 3 that have hunger have immunity to expose, which is pretty good. Immunity to expose means you just don't get it. If they would give it to you, you just don't. It doesn't. You can't get a damage if you're double exposing people, and you just always get to roll your defense dice and take that expertise, which is really strong. And then lastly is Forward Scout, which is kind of neat. I
will tell you, having played with this now,
yeah,
it is much better than it looks on paper.
Yeah, range 2 in this game is a 3-inch plate, 3-inch distance,
versus
right?
So 1 inch.
So you're getting like a pretty substantial width of especially if you drop this unit in the center. But basically, so when you're deploying a squad that includes Commander Pawns, Allied Clone Trooper secondary characters and supported characters can be placed anywhere within 2 of the first placed character in the squad's primary unit instead of the normal one, which gives you just such a wider berth that you can go. And then he's a clone commando, clone trooper, Galactic Republic, and he's got 7 stamina, 2 durability.
I think so. I mean, I'm just gonna call it out. I know this is also your train of thought, but 3-point secondary, let's fucking ride, baby! Like it's the first one we've seen.
First 3-point secondary in the whole game.
In the whole game, he opens up a ton of list building.
Mostly Darth Vader related, just saying.
Yeah. I mean, Vader related for sure. But he's got all the important keywords. He's got clone and he's got Galactic Republic.
Yeah.
And he's a 3-pointer, so he really opens up a lot of build options here.
For sure.
Obviously, I've heard a lot of people on the internet being like, Commander Pawns is like trash tier. Oh, he's bad. Blah, blah, blah. But like, he's a 3-point secondary. And
yeah, man.
Quite frankly, the biggest thing that I want him to do is to have an ability that proactively supports my massive Hero Hammer models, which will be, if I'm running a Mace Windu list, it'll be Mace Windu and probably either primary Obi-Wan, Vader, or Anakin. It'll be like some combination of Mace and one of those 3, right? Or maybe Luminara, I guess. I'm not really sure. But the point is that I want him to have a trigger for free to move my guy, because if he's moving Vader or Mace or Anakin up the board into a position where they can kill things, that's super valuable. And also getting like another proc off of like, I would probably normally be running this guy with like Rex. So both of my secondaries will give a proc to short move my guy, which is great. And then, I mean, we talked about it already. Immunity exposed. Exposed is, in my opinion, easily the most powerful status that you can put on a model. It's the status condition you just gotta have when you want one primary to kill another primary.
Yeah, I think exposed. I think is the scariest condition.
And giving an AOE aura anti-exposed immunity, having Hunky Hunk tokens on your boyos is not very hard in a clone list. There's a lot of ways to do that, and they stay on there if you're running a Nobi list. That's true. Really good.
Yeah. Yeah, it's super nuts because if you're within 3 and bubbling with him with some other clone troopers, right? Um, you're getting the effect of being immune to of expose in melee if you have Obi-Wan because he lets you keep your hunger tokens in melee, which is just like unbelievably strong.
And then I can talk about his track really quickly if you want. I mean, I think this is a pretty.
I just want to say my favorite thing about him, 3 points, is that he is the first model in the game that enables you to take Darth Vader and the whole Sith Assassin Jedi Hunter squad box in one thing. It's the only way you can do it because Vader being 7 and the both of the secondaries from that, or both of the support units from that being 4, it lets you get there. Plus, Vader's Galactic Republic, which means he lets you charge Vader, which is extra movement for Vader. It's really strong. That's my favorite list right now. That's all.
Okay.
We can talk as secondary.
I'm not sure it's the best list, but it's
the best list. Here, you heard it here first,
in your
folks.
heart.
It is
it's
the
best
list
list in your
possible
heart.
list in any points of Shatter.
In any of the shatters of the points. All right,
Factual information.
So, I actually think this guy's pretty neat. The thing that I like about him is that he has 4 damage on a 2-track progression that includes a push, which is nice. So most of the time when I'm using him to shoot at things, I mean, like, if I can kill stuff, amazing. But I'm usually using him to try to 2-track with a push. And he's got a stat 6 on his shot. You don't really want him in melee. If he's in melee with a primary, he's probably going to die. But I think where Pons is most comfortable is, like, chilling out, giving his AoE bubble support to some of his homies, and then, like, trying to, like, cheeky plink stuff for, like, 4 every turn. On his blaster rifle, which is ranged, a 1 through 3 is 2. A 4-up, which you're probably not getting that often, is 2 crits. And then he has his blaster pistols in melee. A 1 through 3 is actually really strong. It's a crit.
Yeah, crit and a hit.
That's really strong. And then 4-up is 2 crits. You're probably not seeing that often. And then he's got phase 1 clone armor. Okay.
Clone armor.
It's
phase 2 clone armor.
Phase 2 clone armor. My bad. 1 full phase wrong.
Yeah.
A 1 through 2 is 1, and a 3-up is 2. I mean, his clone armor is not very good, but his blaster pistols in melee are good, and his blaster pistol at range is good because of how his track works, I think. But
yeah, 2 extra hits is good. It's kind of sad that he doesn't have crits in the first until you get 4 expertise, but what are you gonna do?
I think where this guy lives is just trying to plink people for 4 damage and push them off, like, precarious locations. Like, I feel like that's where the sweet spot is for how you're gonna use him offensively, basically.
Yep. Yeah, and I think for a 3-point secondary, if he had, like, shove in a crit, that'd probably be too much.
He does have shove. You only need.
No, shove on the first track and a crit.
Oh yeah, that'd be ridiculously dope.
But
awesome.
that would be how we make this guy better. But no, he seems good. I really like Commander Pons.
And the list building he opens up is really cool. It's really cool to start seeing, like, not 4-cost everything's coming out now.
Yeah, and I can't wait until we see some crazy numbers like 8 and 5. I guess we already have a 5. But maybe a 6. Who can say? But speaking of list building, you know how you should build lists with him? With these ARF Troopers. Look at those boys.
I think these are, if not the best models in the game, some of the best models in the game right now. Easily top 3.
These ARF Troopers are 3 points. They're a supporting unit of 2 models. They have an activated ability called Defensive Maneuver, which you may have seen on every single clone trooper that's ever been. Yeah. They each dash, the unit gains a hunger token. We did it. Coordinated Fire, you've also seen that before. Coordinated Fire in this case is exposed. So whenever another allied Galactic Republic unit makes an attack as part of a combat action suit, it's not off triggers attacks and things that just happen. It's got to be their activation, they take an action. But before dice are rolled, you use this ability if they're within 5, they apply Exposed, which means they don't get to use any of their defensive tech on expertise, which is absurdly strong. It's the best fucking Coordinated Fire, period. They also have Brothers in Arms, which we've seen plenty of other places. So while this unit has 1 or more hunger tokens, characters in this unit have Steadfast, which does maybe, double up on the Steadfast from Mace Windu giving it out. But, like,
it comes up a lot. They're usually positioned way behind Mace.
Yeah, Steadfast is real good. It just means the first time they get shoved, they ignore the movement portion of the shove. This is just really strong. And then their other innate ability, Lay Low. So when a character in this unit rolls defense dice during a ranged attack, if this unit has 1 or more hunger tokens, they automatically get an expertise, which means they're going to be blocking at least 1 hit, which is pretty strong. And they're 7 health, which is great, and 2 durability because they're a support unit, which they all have 2 durability. But what are you gonna do?
Yeah, I mean, their health stats are, like, fine. Their health stats are just, like, clones. But like you already touched on it. Coordinated fire exposed is absolutely insane. And like
Yeah, it's so good
on a 3-point model that like its stats are the same as like a lot of the other 4-point support models that came in the starter set. Like this model is really, really, really freaking good.
Yeah,
really freaking good. Like I take ARF Troopers in every Galactic Republic list that I make now. I don't make a Galactic Republic list without taking ARF Trooper. If they don't, so like the note is also that like the majority of this model's strength is synergy based. Surprise, surprise, everything this thing is doing is synergy based. But where this guy really shines is when he has high value primaries that can proc coordinated fire auto expose. Like we talked about a little bit how him and Mace Windu are best friends. A really good way to use these guys is to fork them off and have one of them kind of like rolling around with one of your other beaters, like your other primaries, or just like a big scary Galactic Republic unit, and the other one kind of hanging out behind Mace. And then that way you're going to like guarantee that you're going to get coordinated fire exposed on whatever targets those primaries are going to like make into little meat giblets, basically. And I usually run them because that's their huge value and I don't want to expose them super far up. I'm usually running them in places where their 5-inch aura bubble is like getting to the areas of the board and hitting the models that I want them to hit, but only just. Like still also trying to keep them behind the primary beaters and if possible like out of line of sight or at least having cover and hunger, because like you don't want people to just lay into these.
Yeah, 7 health is it's easy for most things that have concentrated damage to just put down.
A primary can one-shot these guys for sure.
Yeah, but that's true of pretty much any supporting unit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, 7 range dice at range 5 on their attacks, pretty good. They only have 4 defense dice, but they get an auto expertise if they're getting shot at. So I think that's pretty wild. They get a pin on their first shot too, and the second one's a shove. And shove at range 5 is just super strong, and I think that with 7 dice, you should really always be getting at least 2. I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing here is.
I think they're solid lads.
Yeah, they're. I think the thing that stands out to me here is 4 defense is a little low, but you do have your lay low. You called that out. That's important to call out. And they do reside in a faction that is often going to be getting hunky with it, and probably staying hunky with it as a result of Obi-Wan a lot of the time. And rolling 7 dice on a support unit at range 5 is pretty nice. And like his gun is there, but that's not the reason you're taking this guy. The reason you're taking this guy is coordinated fire exposed. Let's be, straight up honest.
Yeah, I mean, but they still have an activation, right? So like you're still
Totally.
gonna be, still want to put damage down range, and obviously you should never melee with these guys. Like it's just, you just use defensive maneuver and get out of melee and then shoot things, because their melee expertise track's bad. It's one hit, 2 hits. I guess to be fair, actually, you know what? 2 hits isn't the worst, but you're at 2 less dice, so that seems pretty.
If something absolutely has to die and it has like 1 to 3 wounds left on it, you can run over there and try to hit it. But I wouldn't. Yeah, these guys, in terms of fighting, they don't want to be running into people into melee for no reason.
Not at all.
Yeah.
That's
That's
Mr.
what's
Windu.
In the box. That's the box,
it.
Brandon.
That's the party. It's over.
Oh.
And make sure to join us next time. We talk about Shatterpoint pretty frequently, especially with all the new releases. And we'll probably link below the Goonhammer article, which if you're not checking out Goonhammer, you should. It's really good. It's a great resource for everything wargaming related, especially like Shatterpoint, But yeah, that's it. Check out the Discord, like and subscribe. Get us down in the comments.
And paint with Pro Acryls.
And use Pro Acryls. They're the best paints that have ever or will ever exist, and there is not a product that is better than them. Factual non-opinion fact from Brandon. Also, they don't pay us to say that. Like, no joke. I just really, oh my god, Pro Acryls.
It's just part of the gaming cult that we're in, honestly.
Yeah. We drink 1 bottle of Pro Acryl every episode.
I drink 1 bottle of Pro Acryl every 15 minutes.
Every unit we review, for every unit we review, don't eat the paint. Drink it because it's a liquid.